Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Go Big or Go Home. I am Old Man Troy, joined by the spectacular youngster Kevin Cunningham, a.k.a. Kid Cunny on Twitter. What's shaking in Florida today, my friend?
More hot weather. Yeah, we're getting to August, so hopefully it'll start dipping under 90 soon, but we'll see.
We're in the 90s in Pennsylvania today.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll get colder.
Feels like 100.
Yeah.
Woo!
No bueno. But that time of year, I suppose. What about you? How was your day?
Well, my day was good. I mean, when it's hot like this, I shouldn't complain because I sell a lot of beverages. Lots and lots of beverages. Paychecks look very, very nice when it's hot like this. Problem is, I just don't like it. I personally don't like it, but my paychecks like it. So it was a good day. You know, got back in the grind. For some listeners, if you listen to all our shows or follow us on Facebook or Twitter, I didn't do a lot of posting last week on social media, youngster. You know why. Great man passed away, my father, who probably is the inspiration for me to be a fan. This is the guy that would take me to Green Bay Packer games, take me to Brewer games. Really got used to watching sports with him. He passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, last Saturday. So like I did for Saturday, I'm going to dedicate the show to him. Not do a lot of stories like I did Saturday. It was a little quicker show, but thinking about my dad. So it's kind of been a sad week, but he lived a good life, 88 years old, raised 8 children, 23 grandchildren, 16 great-grandchildren. He lived a really good life. So I'd rather not be sad, but rather knowing that he was up looking down with my mom, so they're both probably up there, you know, ridiculing me for doing this show. Probably. That's what they would do. But this show, you know, for everybody out there listening, dedicating it to my dad back in Pennsylvania, though, getting back at the grind, because that's my dad. He's a blue-collar guy. You know, basically, even talking to him prior to his death, you know, not joking about death, but trying to figure out, hey, Dad, you know, you're getting older. When I die, put me in the ground and move on. That's what he said. Those are my dad's words. He didn't like the hoopla, didn't like the spotlight, didn't like all of that attention. So, you know, we didn't quite do it that way. But for my dad, he didn't want all the attention. So, you know, his big thing is he's a blue-collar guy, and life will go on. You know, and I learned that from him. You can grieve, but, you know, you still have to live your life. And you have to, you know, go forward and do the things that you do. You can be sad, grieve, but still continue with your life. So that's what I'm doing. So hopefully we have a good show today, youngster. Got a lot to talk about. Take it away.
Yeah. Like I said on the other show that we do, my thoughts, you know this, Troy, my thoughts are with you. I hope you had as solid a functioning weekend as you could have. Obviously, it's not going to be a fun one. You know, when someone like that passes away, I haven't had a parent pass away. I've had, you know, grandparents and stuff like that. So, you know, I know what that is like. Losing a parent, I'm sure, is much different and much more impactful. But like I said before, you know, my thoughts are with you. I'm sure our listeners their thoughts are with you as well. You know, but to get back to Big Ten sports, it is late July now, and August is right around the corner. And before we start, well, realistically, this show is all football, and it's going to be all football until November or so when basketball starts up, and then it's still primarily going to be football. That's for sure. Football takes over this show, and there goes my dog.
We might throw some Big Ten soccer in there. We might throw some Big Ten soccer if teams are doing well nationally. We might throw the standings out every once in a while because you and I are soccer guys.
Yeah.
And we're no longer apologizing for talking about soccer on any of our shows.
No, ratings show that the country is not, you know, they don't hate soccer. Like I think that if you ask the average person, like, hey, do you care about soccer? Or, you know, do you think this country really cares about soccer? I think they would say no. And I think it is growing for sure. And I think World Cup ratings symbolize that. The U.S. women's team was phenomenal 4 years ago. And this year they were phenomenal, and the ratings went up a ton. So I just think soccer is growing. I don't think it's as big as the other major sports in this country yet, and it'll never pass some of them for sure. But I think it is growing.
No, but it's the biggest active youth sport, youngster. I mean, that is a proven fact. And
right.
with the women doing what they did, you're going to see a spike in girls wanting to play youth soccer. That's what you'll see. I know that when the women won, this just tells you how old I am. Back when they won their first World Cup, I was coaching, and you saw the increase in the number of girls that wanted to try out for the girls' team. So that's great. It's great for involvement for the youth, but we've talked about this, Kevin. There's so many other avenues to go for revenue and to make a living. And honestly, if I had a daughter that was really good at soccer, I would give her the best coaching available, because there are a ton of soccer scholarships out there, and it's a great way to go to school for free. We talked about the men, though, on the other side. Why play soccer if you're good in football or basketball or baseball?
Yeah.
And you're going to make a ton more money doing that. For women, soccer, actually, if you're talking professional sports, not a bad way to go. Comparative to other leagues. So just wanted to throw that out there. Let's move on to some football, though, because it's getting close.
Yeah. We're, like I said before, we're a few days away from August, and August is literally when the college football season starts. Although it is, August 30th, August 31st, whatever it is. Big Ten football is next month, literally. So we're literally a month away. So football, again, will dominate this show, but basketball, soccer, stuff like that will get its time on this show when it is appropriate. But primarily, certainly football going up until January, basically. But anyway, Big Ten Media Days. For those that don't know, I get paid to write cover about the Big Ten. Once it comes to football season, that's kind of the bread and butter for the site that I write for. It's called SaturdayTradition.com. If you really care about reading Big Ten stuff, if you like listening to Big Ten stuff, then don't go anywhere else. Just stay with us. So find the Youngster and Old Man on Twitter, on Facebook, on our website, youngsteroldman.home.blog. Check us out at thegruelingtruth.com. So there's, if you like just listening about the Big Ten, then you don't have to go anywhere. But anyway, so I covered the Big Ten Media Days, which was July 18th and 19th. It was basically a week and a half ago at this point. And going into it, we talked about, Troy, first of all, I've never really covered an event like that. But going into that event, and we both agreed that realistically, Media Days, you get to hear and talk to and ask questions. And for me, as someone who was covering it, to get paid to cover it and have to actually pay attention and write stories about it, to me, it was, you get to hear from literally all 14 Big Ten coaches. Each of the 14 teams gets to bring 3 players to help, kind of represent their program, so to say. And the media basically flocks them with questions and stuff like that at a different time during those 2 days. Again, July 18th and 19th is when Big Ten Media Days were for college football. And, it's going into it, you and I both agree, Troy, that it's kind of like, what's Paul Chryst going to say? He's going to name the starting quarterback that day, and he's going to say, hey, Jonathan Taylor's going to run for 2,100 yards, and he's going to run for 30-plus touchdowns. And, oh, by the way, our left tackle is out for the year. And, oh, wait a minute, we changed. There's not going to be all these unbelievable headlines coming out of it. We like where we're at. We still have to go into fall practice, first of all. So there's a lot of time, there's a lot of unknowns, and it's a lot of somewhat vanilla speaking and just kind of coach speak, so to say. That was both of our thoughts, and that's primarily what it was. There's not humongous takeaways that coaches said that it's like, whoa, I didn't know, this and this and this and this about this program. I'm going to just mentally, I don't have notes in front of me. As far as, talking points for every single team, that would take forever, but I'm going to literally, I've got the standings up from last year. I'm going to go down team by team and see if anything sticks out in my mind. This is going to be a shorter show. But overall, there were 2 major talking points that basically everyone asked both the coaches and the players from every single Big Ten team about. And one of those, I guess, before nitpicking into every single team, and and like I said, this is going to go quick, but the transfer portal was asked about as far as basically, it's kind of a newer thing where players don't even have to tell their coaches, don't have to tell anyone, teammates, coaches, anyone. And they can just submit their name in the transfer portal at 2 a.m. on a random Tuesday, and some team can reach out and say, hey, we could use you, and you don't have to get permission from anyone to do that as a player. So as far as the transfer portal goes, there are things like who gets eligibility immediately. And sometimes it comes down to, like, Shea Patterson, the quarterback at Michigan. He stayed. He's going to be the quarterback again for Michigan. That's part of why Michigan's the favorite going into this season, finally, as opposed to Ohio State or any other team. But he's a guy that came from Ole Miss, and because Ole Miss had a bunch of sanctions around them, the NCAA said, hey, you can start immediately if you transfer to Michigan. And so he did, and he transferred, and boom, he was starting last fall for Michigan. For other players, the same type of situations will go down, and yet they won't be granted immediate eligibility. And so basically, coaches were just talking about how this whole transfer portal thing, it's fine. Teams will import transfers, and it's a cool way to add talent. Obviously, you're going to lose some talent too every year, but just kind of where is the clarity on it? So there's no real question back to you, Troy. I just think the transfer portal is what it is. It's something newer. And I think it was Kirk Ferentz who said, this is my only kind of takeaway from this whole thing, was he brought up the point. He's like, if you're good enough to play college football for 5 years, and considering more students, this is not a literal fact, but it seems like a lot of students are taking, especially if you've got a sport to consider, and the time and effort that goes into that a lot of kids, it'll take 4.5, 5 years. And so if you're in school for that long, then why not give student athletes 5 years of eligibility? And I'm just curious on your thought on that. I guess before I take mine, Troy, obviously everyone's got 4 years, and there's been changes to the redshirt rule and stuff like that. But 5 years of eligibility, I'm just curious on your thoughts with that.
Well, I'm going to touch on the transfer portal first.
Yeah.
My days of coaching in college, it was the old-fashioned way. You actually had to get permission from your coach, from your school, before you could actively transfer. And the NCAA rules as far as eligibility never really changed. You had to submit your appeal. If you transferred, you were deemed ineligible for a year, but you could appeal to the NCAA to play immediately. That hasn't changed. I kind of like the transfer portal, Kevin, but I kind of don't. And the reason is you were recruited by a coach. You decided that you wanted to play there, and now you're unhappy. So you're going to go because the coach went out and recruited a better player, and you're sitting on the bench. So part of me is like, well, that kind of sucks a little bit. But I also understand it. Coach will leave. Maybe you got injured, and so that kind of hurt your chances, put you farther down on the depth chart. I like to see good players be able to play. And if you go to like an Alabama, even a Wisconsin, a Michigan, a lot of these Big Ten teams, you may get pushed down into the depth chart. And, Kevin, how many times have we seen in the NFL a 4th, 5th-round draft pick become an all-pro? Happens a lot.
Yeah. I think half the entire NFL last year was made up of undrafted guys, which is incredible to me.
So I don't have a big problem with this like I did when it first came out. You know how I am, Kevin. I'm pretty big on you make a commitment, you need to stick to your commitment. But the more I think about it, it's like, you know what? I was a college player once. I was a coach, and it does kind of make sense. And I never really understand either getting permission from the school to be able to transfer. It's like, it's my life. Why do I need to get your permission? I never even agreed. I didn't even agree with that when I was a coach. I had players that wanted to transfer. It's like, it sucks. And then you talk to them. I guess that's my only thing with this is if you're going to be professional about it, instead of just going on the portal and submitting your name, go to your coach and say, Coach, I'm going to transfer. I'm not happy with my playing time.
Right.
I don't know what my plans are for the future. That happened to me a number of times. And 9 times out of 10, it's an easy, go, you know what, you're not in our plan. We recruited you thinking one thing, and this happened. Yeah, go play, be happy. There's a couple of times where you're like, where's this all stemming from? And sometimes, Kevin, we don't know. Is it you're not getting along with your teammates? Is there something going on the campus we don't know about? There's a lot of other factors outside of football, I think, that go into transferring.
Yeah.
A lot of them. And I'm not going to share stories that I heard when I coached, but I would say half of the time, it wasn't even about playing time. It wasn't even about the program. It wasn't even about the university. It was about something going on in their personal life, and they felt that they needed a transfer.
Right.
So I wanted to throw that out there. Now, as far as the eligibility, honestly, when I went to school back in the late 80s, early 90s, 4.5 years was quick. Then I got done in 4.5 years, Kevin. I redshirted my first year knowing that it was going to take me 4.5 years to complete my degree.
Right.
So I had no problem redshirting my first year. I'm like, this is cool. Yeah. I can redshirt, I can practice, I can get better, I can get bigger, stronger, understand the program, and still have 4 years to play. Awesome. So if you're talking about 4.5 years being quick back in early 90s, yeah, I know guys, Kevin, that are going to school 5.5 years.
Yeah.
It's just the way the world works now. And you know what? I'd be okay with 5 years of eligibility. Because if you're really good, if you're a really good 5-star recruit or 4-star recruit, and you are NFL bound, and after you meet the requirements and you want to go in the draft, it doesn't matter if it's 4 or 5 years of eligibility.
Right. You're gone after 3 anyway.
So think about the guys, though, that maybe need to put a little muscle mass on. The guys that are not as skilled as a 4-star recruit but are good hard workers, they could benefit from another year.
Yeah.
You just talked about the number of undrafted free agents.
Yeah.
You give them another year in college, some of these guys, and you might even see more.
Right.
Sure.
You'd be getting 23-year-old starting offensive linemen at Illinois going up against talented 19-year-olds at Michigan and Ohio State. And so it just gives those teams, in my opinion, more of a chance to compete. I don't think the stud, unbelievable player, like you said, you're leaving for the NFL anyway. You're not staying at Ohio State, Michigan, Wisconsin for 5 years if you're that good anyway. You're gone after 3. Some of these players will have ridiculous sophomore seasons, and then it's like, hey, should they take their junior year off? Hey, Jadeveon Clowney, should you even play all 13 games at South Carolina? No, you should just be in the NFL.
I mean, we can get into that too, Kevin, now that you're bringing that up, the 3 years. I'm still okay with 2. You go and play for 2 years. It's your life. If you don't want your degree and you know you're going to the NBA to make millions of dollars, hey, good for you. So, but I understand also, though, why football's, 3 years. It's all about safety.
Right.
Because there is a huge difference between a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old.
Yeah. I just think if you're that gifted and that enough to be picked that high and to give that much of a reason to go out after 2 years, then you're probably ready. Like, not to say that every decision would be great and perfect. You see that in basketball when you could go out of high school. Not all those kids succeeded, but they felt like they could. And I think after 2 years, if you're a tiny guy who needs to put on weight, even though you had a really good season, it's like, maybe I should stay in college 1 more year and just get bigger and stronger and faster and, yada, yada, yada. I don't know. I'd be down for 2 years, go to the NFL, 5 years of potential eligibility. Perfectly fine by me. I had never heard that until these Big Ten Media Days. I think it was Kirk Ferentz that brought it up. So I just thought it was interesting. The other thing I wanted to mention, big topic, was this was asked to a lot of the coaches. It's like the Big Ten is the Big Ten, and you can say the SEC is better, you can say the Big Ten is better, whatever. think a lot of people would agree it's probably the two most competitive leagues in general that has the most high-quality football teams. The ACC has Clemson, sure, but after that, it drops off. Big Ten, a lot of good teams in the middle, a lot of good teams at the top. SEC, there's basically 1-2 good teams at the top, and then a bunch of solid teams, in my opinion. But regardless, the Big Ten has not made the college football playoff in the last 2 years. And so you can have one loss and win the Big Ten and still not go to the playoff like Ohio State did a year ago. And, so basically what's wrong with the system? What's wrong with the Big Ten? Why is the Big Ten not getting representation? That was asked. And a lot of coaches were talking about how it doesn't make sense because the Big Ten has 9 conference games. No other conference, I don't think any other conference has 9. Just to poke at the SEC has 8. So again, if you have 4 cupcakes potentially on your schedule as opposed to 3, that's less chance of a loss. Also, if you look at some of these teams like Alabama, to again poke on them, they may schedule Alcorn State. They may schedule FCS Northwest. They may schedule whoever. And a lot of Big Ten teams increasingly now don't do that. Like there are cupcake games like Akron, and then there are cupcake games like Division II, FCS, ridiculous games. And you don't see a lot of those ridiculous games in the Big Ten anymore. And actually, I should mention this to back Alabama a little bit. Alabama and Wisconsin agreed to a home-and-home series 2024-2025, so it's obviously way down the line. But Alabama is willing to play Wisconsin and vice versa. So that'll be cool, whenever that is, 5 years down the line. But figured I should mention that since it's news as of today. So anyway, basically the Big Ten, you're scheduling, you have across the conference, you have a tougher schedule than you do any other conference because you have 9 conference games as opposed to 8, just for an example, and because you schedule Akron and Alabama and Ohio as opposed to Akron and Alcorn State and Mississippi Tech. It's just different. And then you have 9 conference games as opposed to only 8. So everyone was basically saying if you really want to make this fair, then every conference should play the same amount of conference games, and we should do away with, or we should all be allowed to, and it shouldn't hurt us to play teams like FCS Northwest or Alcorn State. It is not fair that teams do schedule up a bit, and you do have to play 9 conference games as opposed to 8. And these teams that play lesser opponents, and yet they're still given more love by a committee of however many members it is, 13, something like that. Basically, in short, again, there's not really, it's not fair, but it is what it is. And then all the coaches understand that, and they think that something has to be done, something has to change, whether that's at the college football playoff level in terms of the committee or the Big Ten stepping in and saying, let's go down to 8 games, or let's make sure every major conference plays 9, and make it fair that way. Just basically something has to change. And to go along with this, people were talking about realignment for the divisions, and nobody really agreed with that as far as coaches, players were concerned, because it is a cyclical thing. If Nebraska gets the right coach and Scott Frost takes them into a perennial top 10 program, it's a lot different. And the same thing, Penn State, pre-James Franklin for 10 years or so, they were not that great. Now with James Franklin, they're top 20 every single year, no matter who they have. So, it is kind of a cyclical thing. I think that when you made the divisions and you put Ohio State and Michigan, the 2 traditional powers in the same division, I think that probably was not brilliant. But it is a scheduling thing. It is to make sure that they do play each other and you get ratings and you get revenue for that. But just in short,
it's also logistics, Kevin. I mean, there's some logistics in there to cut down on the amount of travel time, the distance of travel time. I mean, I think a lot of times, Kevin, the average fan doesn't understand the behind-the-scenes budget. And now, granted, these are big-time schools. But still, look at how many kids you're transporting and all of the transportation costs.
Right.
I mean, you cut back a little bit here and there, and that's more money for the school. Maybe they're giving it to another program. I know a lot of it goes to football and basketball, but there's a pool. Usually most schools will have their general athletic fund that is used for all their sports. So, I mean, it's one of those things that logistically it made sense. Now, Kevin, you and I brought this up, and I don't remember when. And what they're saying about realignment and all this stuff and the number of conference games, I understand where they're coming from. And, you know, right now they're looking at, well, you got Michigan State, you got Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, all pretty good teams in one division.
Right.
Our notion, Kevin, of a Big Ten playoff with a semifinal and a final,
yeah,
it really makes sense. Maybe you do cut back to 8 conference games and then run that semifinal game.
Right.
Because now you give Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, and one of them an extra game.
Yeah.
They might finish second, and you know what? Their season's not done. They get a chance to redeem themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, whether you're a 1 or a 2 seed at that point, going into that 4-team semifinal that the Big Ten would have, that's what Troy and I are proposing, so to say, that guarantees you another quality win at the worst. Instead of potentially playing Illinois week 13, you're playing Wisconsin. You're playing a ranked Northwestern team, a ranked Iowa team, a ranked Purdue team, a ranked Nebraska team, a ranked Minnesota team, whoever. Like, the Big Ten West is going to be ridiculously fun.
Yeah, if you're number 2 in the Big Ten West, you're going to probably be ranked.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that putrid.
No.
I mean,
there are
that
6.
putrid.
There are 6 teams in the Big Ten West that are good this year. Like, basically everyone's saying, like, pick your name out of a hat as to who you think is going to win the Big Ten West. People say Nebraska because of the quarterback, because of their schedule, but literally 6 of them, not counting Illinois, that's the 7th outlier. The other 6 teams have a legitimate chance of winning the division. Seriously, like, Minnesota is going to be a lot better. Nebraska is going to be a lot better. Those were 2 3-6 teams a year ago. The other teams finished over 500. And Iowa is not going to get worse with the quarterback they still have. Purdue's only getting better. Wisconsin was 5-4 last year. I'm assuming they're not going to drop off. Northwestern's still going to be good. They ran away with the Big Ten West, but that division has 6 good teams in it. It's going to be really fun to watch on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and then you look at the East. I mean, you got quality teams, and so the question that came up is not making the playoffs. The problem is, we've said this, Kevin, that the Big Ten is the best conference. And I hate to say that's why they're not making the playoff, but that's why they're not making the playoff, because they beat each other up in the conference.
Right. You have a chance to lose more games a lot easier. And again, that also goes to non-conference scheduling. The Big Ten does pretty much better than most conferences, especially the SEC, which sometimes gets 2 teams in to the playoff. And not saying that they're not deserving. Like, last year, they were deserving of 2. I didn't think Ohio State was all that amazing. They had an amazing offense. Defensively, it was one of the worst defenses I've seen in a long time. So I'm not saying, like, Ohio State should have been in there. The SEC getting 2, that's ridiculous. I don't think that at all. I think the 2 best teams were in the SEC, and they played each other. And, yeah, it made sense. But on a yearly basis to get shafted, it's kind of like, okay, something has to change. We have to change something. We have to even the playing field somehow. Something has to change. So there was no kind of gathered answer among all the coaches and players, like, this is what should happen. But it's just something that Big Ten people understand, to not make the playoff 2 years in a row when you have arguably the best and deepest conference. Something's wrong. So.
Well, that's why. And again, I don't want to say that's why, but it is why. I mean, you look at Penn State's got to play Ohio State and Michigan, and even, what was it, 2 years ago when people thought that they had a chance for the national title?
Yeah.
Okay, you got Michigan and Ohio State, and now you still got to battle against a Maryland team. Everybody's laughing probably that I said Maryland, But you know what? Maryland plays football too. So does Rutgers. So does Purdue. So does Iowa. And they're not bad teams.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it, Kevin. Everybody out here in Western PA with Pitt and the ACC, and they went to the ACC title game last year. Put them in the Big Ten, and they're sitting there waddling their feet in the water with Rutgers. Literally. Yeah. They're not getting any higher than that.
I think really this year, I think Maryland's going to, especially schedule-wise, that's what's tough with Maryland this year, but Maryland will be a below-average team. Indiana, I think, will be below average. Rutgers, Illinois will be bad. Otherwise, it's a bunch of good teams or better. So, I don't know. You're talking about 10 teams there. Like 5, well, not 5, sorry, 4 very good teams, top 25 level teams in the East, and then 6 teams from the West that are very competitive at the least. So that's 10. That's 10 deep. That all 10 of those teams guaranteed will at least be solid teams, at least.
Yeah, no gimme game where you play them. Yeah.
I think Troy's phone trailed off there, but yeah.
But you go on the road to Minnesota. That's normally a tough game.
Yeah.
And we joke about it now that I won't talk about Minnesota, so I'm going to bring it up now because it's not really football. It's more to prove a point. That's how this all started. If anybody's a loyal listener, why I don't want to talk about Minnesota, that's why. Because I said, well, Minnesota's usually a tough game at home, and that was 2 years ago. And they were just getting blown out at home. And I'm like, mother of good Lord, thanks for really making me look like poo.
Yeah.
So, but what my point here, Kevin, is you go on the road in the Big Ten, you better be ready to play. I don't care if you're Ohio State against Iowa. I don't care if you're Wisconsin against Maryland. Whoever it is, when you go on the road, you better be ready to play.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you could leave that visiting team's stadium with a loss, no matter what team you are. So there it is. It's the best conference in America. It may not always have a national championship. Heck, they haven't had anybody in the playoff. But top to bottom competitive nature of the power conferences, the Big Ten rules the roost. If you can take every team and just go down and say probable winning opportunities. Is it a team that you want to play? Is it an automatic win? You're not getting automatic wins, Kevin, like you said, till you get past 10. And those aren't even automatic, but they're pretty close. Pretty close, though. That's all I got on that.
So very quickly to close out the show, I'm going to go through every single Big Ten team, and if there's anything that pops into my head, just off the top of my head from Big Ten Media Days, I'll start with Ohio State. I'll start with the East. Ohio State, there was really nothing that I can think of.
New coach.
Yeah, new coach. But he didn't say anything that was noteworthy, to be honest, in my opinion. Anyway, Michigan, Jim Harbaugh said that his team should be favored. His team is favored to win the Big Ten. I'll say this. Even if Urban Meyer was back at Ohio State, I would still favor Michigan. To me, it's just night and day what you're going to see from Dwayne Haskins to probably Justin Fields, who hasn't really started a college game yet, compared to Dwayne Haskins, who was unbelievable, breaking every Big Ten record you can imagine a year ago. So that's going to be huge. And again, Ohio State's defense was not you could say it was average at best. Michigan's going to be very good this year, and they return a fifth-year quarterback. So Michigan's going to be very good. To me, they're the team to beat. But again, there's nothing crazy noteworthy there, I don't think. Penn State, James Franklin talked about how young his team is. You know, there's no guy like Saquon Barkley. Trace McSorley's gone. So it's kind of who knows what happens at quarterback, and that's okay, though, because we've got, basically he said, the fastest team ever. He's got a bunch of athletes. And the recruiting will show that from the last 3-4 years, that this team is just loaded in terms of athletes. And you need more than athletes to win, but Penn State will have a talent advantage over 9/10 of the teams they play. It's just a matter of getting your quarterback to be okay, getting your running backs to all buy into a system, and getting your offensive line in a cohesive unit, and, yada, yada with the defense. But Penn State's got players, for sure. There just aren't breakout names that we've necessarily heard of yet, so to say.
You know what the good thing about athletes is, though, Kevin?
Yeah.
If you have good athletes, you can dabble with their position.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you may have recruited a guy that, this guy is an awesome wide receiver. But if he's an athlete and all of a sudden you have a need at safety, and this
Right.
guy is, 6'3", but he runs a 4.3 40, you're like, you know what? We got a pretty deep wide receiver core, but we might be able to make this guy a strong safety. That's the neat thing about college, is that you can take those athletic guys and you can kind of, I don't want to say experiment, but you have that luxury to say, you know what, your skill set might be better used at this position.
Right.
But you can only do it with athletes. You can do it with other guys too, don't get me wrong. But when you have those guys that are just pure athletes and they have a skill set, they may be recruited at one position, but once you get them on the field, you're like, maybe. And I've done that coaching soccer, Kevin. I've went out and recruited guys, great defender, and I go recruit the kid, and I watched, being able to send, a 45-yard crossing ball to the 18. I'm like, dude, this guy's a flanker. He's not a defender. This guy would be great on the wing. Being able to sail the ball in there like that. So it happens in any sport, but in football, I think if you have athletic guys, you can dabble a little bit with their position.
Yeah, absolutely. Michigan State, there was nothing necessarily noteworthy that I can remember coming off the top of my head.
No fire, Antonio?
No, not at Big Ten Media Days. There was no outcry for that. Maryland, Michael Oxley is from the kind of Maryland, Baltimore County, D.C., whatever you want to call it, area. And so he says it's his dream job, and I believe him. If you're going to leave as the number 2 man at Alabama under Nick Saban to be the head coach at Maryland, I think you got to love Maryland, and he does, and he understands that there's a lot of talent there, and he wants to build a program just based on the talent there. So again, nothing really noteworthy, but I think he has a plan, and I think he really wants to make Maryland a power. That's something he truly believes in. I'll say that much.
Here's the thing with Maryland, Kevin. I don't think they'll be a constant power like a Michigan or an Ohio State. Mm-hmm. But I think you get the right recruiting class. I think you can put together a good 2-3 year run and then have chances at the Big Ten title. But I don't think overall that you're going to see Maryland be put in the same breath as Michigan or Ohio State football. But I think there will be the years where they can make that magical run. It'll help recruiting for the future years. But I don't think it's ever going to be in an air quote a power. But I think, you can build them into a good program, and then you get that right recruiting class and battle for a Big Ten title every couple of years.
Yeah. I think Maryland could become Iowa. Don't compare the two, but that type of level of program, in my opinion. Indiana, they're going away from the 2 quarterback system, which
woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. That was amazing to hear. So that's what stuck out to me about Indiana. Rutgers, there was nothing. Northwestern, moving to the Big Ten West. Northwestern, I don't think there was anything necessarily Pat Fitzgerald said that has to be said on this show.
Other than that, he's a coach another year at Northwestern.
Yeah, and good for Northwestern.
Very good for Northwestern. There's going to be a year that we do this show, and it's going to be Northwestern no longer has Fitzgerald. It's going to happen.
Yeah. By the way, going back to Maryland, the number 4 overall recruit in 2018, this was news of yesterday, is basically not enrolled at Alabama anymore. He had a tie with Mike Locksley because, like I said before, Locksley was under Saban. He was a big name figure at Alabama when he was there last year. And so he's moved to Maryland. He is from Maryland, so it's kind of like, hey, when are you going to transfer to Maryland, basically. That's a huge recruit. I don't think, again, Maryland's going to get 5-star level recruits on a consistent basis, but I do think Locksley having some ties at Alabama and having some ties to that region could help infuse some talent from that region. Northwestern, again, nothing he said necessarily, Fitzgerald, but they are going from Clayton Thorson to basically Clemson's backup, who got beat out by Trevor Lawrence, who was, basically everyone's saying is the best quarterback now in college football. He's at Clemson. Northwestern got Hunter Johnson because of that, and he's going to be the starter. Basically, it's not confirmed, but he's probably going to be the starter this year, and he's a former 5-star recruit. So that's Northwestern's quarterback position isn't exactly like, oh, gee, we lost Thorson because he graduated. Now we're screwed. Not necessarily at all. So I think it'll be very interesting for Northwestern. Wisconsin, there was absolutely nothing that Paul Chris said that was interesting.
Well, we can just reiterate, though, since I'm a Badger fan, and we probably have Badger fans that listen, this is going to be, I think, a different look Badger team. Yeah, you got Taylor, but I think you actually have some competence under center this year, don't you?
As long as Graham Mertz starts, which is not, it's not signed, sealed, delivered, and,
nor should it be. I think the kid's got to win the job.
Yeah.
But I think there's some optimism that there finally might be a quarterback that can actually do something. And it kind of, people are going to laugh at me. People are going to laugh when I bring this name up, Kevin. Everybody knows Russell Wilson. Okay, that is an anomaly in Wisconsin Badger history. But if you go back and look at the quarterbacks, a guy that was a really good college quarterback, believe it or not, Randy Wright, didn't do much in the pros. Had a horrendous NFL career, but he knew how to control the college game and play within the Wisconsin system. And that's me growing up, Kevin. And when Randy Wright was the quarterback, it was like, hey, we got a guy that can maybe get the ball to a receiver. And at one time, Wisconsin actually used to turn out a ton of really good receivers to the NFL, along with running backs. The name Al Toon, if you're a football fan, the name Al Toon, that's a Wisconsin Badger product.
Yeah.
So I go back and get in. This shows my age with talking about Randy Wright, and people are probably laughing at me like, oh, he sucked. He sucked in the NFL. He was an above-average college quarterback, and in the Wisconsin system, Kevin, if you're above average, that's all you need.
Yeah.
They don't put the ball in the quarterback's hands. But the thing is, Randy Wright, you could put the ball in his hand and still have hope at the end of the game. Like, this guy might be able to do it. He wasn't like that, a guy that's going to be like, oh, yeah, no fear, we got Randy Wright. But it's like, hey, Randy Wright's a decent quarterback. We're down by 3. We just got to get in field goal range. Randy Wright might be able to do it. He was a good college quarterback. Again, I'm not defending his NFL career because that one sucks. But that's all I got, my friend.
Yeah. Please just start Graham Mertz. That's all I have to say. Not Jack Cohn. Purdue, there's nothing that sticks out in my mind. I think everyone knows Rondale Moore, the wide receiver, is pretty ridiculous, and he'll continue to be fed the ball. So that's Purdue. Iowa, I already mentioned Kirk Ferentz's statement about 5 years of eligibility. That was kind of the big one. Nothing necessarily about the team. They returned their quarterback, Nate Stanley, so they'll at least be solid. Nebraska, Adrian Martinez, he's a sophomore, and Scott Frost knows that he is the leader of the program, and he proved that a year ago just as a true freshman. He was the quarterback. I've said this before, that he's kind of Michael Vick-esque in that he can throw. He's got an arm. He's talented. just from a throwing standpoint, but he's an even better runner. And just listening to him talk to the media and talk to Big Ten Network guys, and I absolutely 100% believe that he is the leader of that program just in the way he talks. That you can tell. So it's not as though I questioned his leadership, questioned his maturity before, but it was just so easy to tell listening to his interviews and watching him speak that he's the leader of the team. And everyone is behind him, and that's a good thing because he's incredibly talented. So that's what I took from Nebraska.
I believe he's incredibly talented, but I think the people in Vegas are smoking crack.
It's all about the schedule, really. Honestly, their schedule is as set up as it can almost possibly be. And compared to other Big Ten West teams, all their hard games are at home, and there's not a ton of them. So it's really, to me, schedule-based as far as them being the favorite. They are the favorite to get out of the West. But 6 of those 7 teams can do it. I just think Nebraska's schedule is definitely the easiest. I think that's it. With the Cornhuskers, Minnesota, there was nothing noteworthy. And
but
Illinois,
to make the college football playoff?
Well, I mean, Michigan's the favorite to win the conference. And Vegas knows that.
I shake my head. I mean, next year maybe when the odds would come out if Nebraska shows major, and they did at the end of the season, you could see there was some comfort level with that program. Finally, some stability. Finally, some winning.
Yeah.
But man, the thing is, Kevin, that you can be a coach and you can go in and say, oh, here's where it is. So I'll throw stories out. I love throwing stories, and hopefully I don't lose you. I'm getting to that point of the drive where I'm coming to the valley. So even in Division III, we didn't have so-called media days, but we had media availability. The media talked to us, and then we had the coaches meeting where we ranked the teams. And so you go in there, and you have now put expectations on this Nebraska team that you're good enough to play in the College Football World Series. As much of a coach, you want to go and say, hey, don't pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to that. Come on, they're 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Does it go to their head like, oh, we're good? They haven't proven anything yet. That's what scares me about that and what they're doing to them. You're putting some lofty expectations on a team that has done nothing.
Yeah. And there are huge expectations on Martinez. I mean, he's a Heisman favorite. He's not the Heisman favorite, but he's like top 5. And again, he's a true sophomore quarterback for a team that doesn't really have a defense. So he's going to have to be fantastic, and I think he can be, but he's going to have to be in order for that team to live up to what people are thinking. So I think it'll be interesting. Minnesota, there was nothing. In Illinois, there was also nothing. But Lovie Smith's beard, if you haven't seen that in the last few months, just Google Lovie Smith, and you'll see his updated beard, and it's quite ridiculous. So I will leave the show with that. There are no other, major sticking points, but figured we'd go over media days and just some of the questions that were asked of the coaches, big topic type of thing. But starting next week, I think Troy and I are going to truly get into these teams more in depth and kind of go, maybe 4 teams a week for the next 4 weeks leading up to the season, because we're literally 4 weeks away. So we may do that, kind of spend each show on 4 teams and just pick at their schedules, pick at, what's returning, what expectations are, stuff like that. So.
And we promise to keep it about an hour.
Yeah. We won't go too crazy. 15 minutes a team. We'll stick with that. 15 minutes a team.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Can't believe it's our third time doing football already.
It's going to be the 4th basketball.
Yeah,
that's great.
It'll be the 4th season of Go Big or Go Home in January.
Yeah.
We're finishing up year 3. Woo!
Good stuff. Good times ahead. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, yeah.
All righty. Do I still have you, youngster? Because I'm in that area.
Yeah. You're starting to up, but yep.
All right. Well, then you can end the show. Tell people where to find us, and then we'll just let them go.
Sounds good. So, at Youngster Old Man on Twitter, Youngster Old Man on Facebook, facebook.com/Youngster Old Man, twitter.com/Youngster Old Man. That's where you can find our social media stuff. Our home page is youngsteroldman.home.blog. So that's another good way to find us. But aside from the blog, aside from the socials, what was the other one? Oh, thegruelingtruth.com. That's another one that you can find.
That's where I'm listening right now.
Exactly. So you already know about thegruelingtruth.com, but that is where you can find all of Troy and I's stuff, not just Big Ten related, but national sports as well. So for the old man, I am the youngster. I guess I'll say that. To kind of quote a Troy, for the youngster, I am the old man. For the old man, I am the youngster. You all have a good week.